Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session recap of Grey Eminence. This time, session 17, I think it was. Well, where to begin? So the party essentially woke up from their little nap, I think. Actually, they didn't quite take a nap yet, but they were in the lizard folk village, recovered. No one else knew that Greem had actually died. And they started pilfering through the village, didn't find too much at all, and actually slept. And then they wanted to go find out about these dryads. So they go into the western forest, and it is here that they encounter the first dryad, who kind of just playfully leads them around in a circle in the forest, and eventually they see another figure. This figure is tall and in really ornate plate armor and a magical great sword, and just a very intimidating figure to meet in the middle of the forest. The party didn't really know what to think at first, and eventually they agreed to leave their weapons behind. Now, they left their weapons behind and they hung them up in a tree, because they thought they would only be walking for a little bit longer, but in fact, they actually walked for about an hour more, so they were really hoping that this wasn't a violent encounter. Now, eventually, they get to this Dryad Grove. It's here that they meet a couple more dryads, and they seem to be quite friendly, except to Alexander. They really don't like him because of this evil in his arm. But the party does learn about a fallen kingdom called Roarenfall to the lands far to the southeast, lands that have risen recently again. And if they wish to find any information about Alexander's mark, or any information about powerful artifacts, or just knowledge in general, they might wish to go there. But after that, the dryads quickly lose interest in talking about serious matters, and everyone kind of swims in the nice little hot springs they have here. So Fel beds one of the dryads, and the others, they just enjoy their company. They don't necessarily make advances on them, but they also find out that the Dryad Grove pool of water there, the hot springs, is actually has a healing property to it. And of course, like any player would, they always want to take something out of the magical pool just in case it retains its magic. Afterwards, they decided to make it back to their town, and they spend a night there, and they set off with Fickle the next day, the pixie, and they set off towards the ruins. I pretty much just kind of gloss over it, the travel, because they've dealt with enough enemies along the way, and I don't really like pointless battles too much. Sometimes I throw them in there to represent a new type of enemy in the land, if it's a new land, but this is their lands. I'm not really going to have too much random encounters going on. So they make it to the ruins. They discover that the ruins is actually covered up with sediment, like hundreds and hundreds of years of sediment. So they start to climb up this sediment, but not before Atlas goes up there by himself, and through some miscommunication and misinterpretation of my drawing, the battle had started before we figured that out, but it's already too late to go back. So Zach was a good sport about it. You know, mistakes happen in D&D. But anyways, the battle goes on. Gelatinous cubes. They fight them. And then they find these ruins, these dwarven ruins on the four corners of this opening in the central pit of the main floor that looks kind of like an elevator shaft. It's 20 by 20. And when they activate it, so as this was only part of a ruin, the arcane energy didn't have anywhere to go, and caused a massive explosion that did a lot of damage to everyone, but didn't really bring them to the brink of anything, of death or anything like that. And that's where we ended this session. We ended a little early. I was, again, frustrated that we didn't get to the next battle, but I was talking about it with Zach, and it seems I still haven't gotten the mindset of we're higher level now, and the enemies have more hit points, and I actually give a lot of the enemies more hit points anyways, because characters are doing so much damage at this point, it's kind of ridiculous. So if there's not a lot of enemies, I actually up their hit points quite a bit. Otherwise, the enemies will only get 1 or 2 hits in, and then before they're dead. So yeah, the battle takes a little bit longer at level 9 than it does at, say, levels 1 through, I'd say, 6. At level 7, it starts getting a little bit more longer. But level 9, it's pretty long battles, but I'm fine with that. I just need to adjust my scope. Alright, so other than that, the session went really well. It was a fun little session where it had a little bit of adventure. It had some world building, future setup for more of the main plot, you know, the Roar and Fall area. And it also had a little bit of battle in there, not a whole lot. They're probably not going to want to take a long rest. So at least they'll go through another battle that you guys will find out when you watch this next session. So really, I don't have too much else to say about this session. Everything went really smoothly. James should be back in the next session, so look forward to that. I don't think he'll be gaming with us for too much longer, because he's actually going to Afghanistan, I believe it is, for 9 months starting in July, and with school picking up for me because I graduate in May finally. I know it's been a long time coming. School's picking up for me, so we'll only really have time to do, I think, one more session after this next one that's coming up right after this video, until probably the end of May, middle of May at the optimistic outlook. And part of that is because I think Zach is leaving for 3 weeks in the middle of April as well. So yeah, you know, this is not a consistent campaign, but it is definitely one where all the parties are interested in keeping it going, and the fact that we've made it this far is very good. So we're going to keep on pushing through. James's character will likely either become an NPC that travels with the party for this next leg of the campaign, or stays back and manages the bureaucratic side of things back in their town and kingdom. We'll see where he kind of leaves the party at that point in the game. I'm pretty sure we're like 2 sessions away, maybe even 1 session away from really getting down to the next big plot point of this chapter. Right now, this has all kind of been preliminary stuff, the building of their little town to start get things settled, and a little bit of world building. But soon it will transition into traveling across great lands and dealing with creatures they've never dealt with before. Alright, yeah, I think that's it for me on this recap. If there's any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And I have heard you on the whole volume aspect, and I've really tried to improve the volume, but I can't really improve the volume anymore on my sessions, as everything will just start getting drowned out, and I can hear everything just fine. If anyone's having troubles, just let me know and I'll try to help you out. Everything sounds good on my end, and I only have my volume set to about 25% of the max capacity when I play back, so I don't know. I did notice, however, that my these videos, these session recaps, the last 2 were actually a little lower than I would like on volume, and I realized that. But the sessions, they're pretty much going to remain the same, so hopefully no one has a problem with that as far as volume goes. But yeah, again, that's it for me. Stay tuned for the next session that's following this video. Alright everyone, take care.